The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber groaned open with a sound like dying stars. General Elena Voss stepped through the entrance, her military boots echoing against crystalline floors that stretched beyond the horizon. Above her, the dome of the chamber rose 30 kilometers high, its transparent walls revealing the swirling nebulae of deep space beyond. She was alone. Behind her, the door sealed shut with finality that made her spine tingle. Ahead lay the most intimidating sight in the known galaxy, Quayu, the Council Chamber of Nexus Prime, where representatives from 847 different species decided the fate of entire civilizations. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering that defied physics, its gravity wells carefully calibrated to accommodate beings from worlds with radically different environments. Elena felt the weight immediately. The gravity manipulators pressed down on her with crushing force. 3 times Earth's standard pull. Her knees wanted to buckle. Her shoulders screamed in protest, but she kept walking. Each step required tremendous effort, and she could hear the alien murmurs rippling through the assembled representatives. The human cannot even stand properly, hissed a voice from somewhere in the vast semicircle. Ahead, look how it struggles, clicked. Another. Elena's lips curved into the faintest smile. Let them think her weak. Let them believe their atmospheric tricks would break her spirit before the real negotiations began. The council representatives sat in towering tiers that rose like an amphitheater toward the dome's peak. Each species occupied its own section, the environment carefully controlled for their biological needs. Steam rose from the aquatic zones where the depth lords floated in their pressure suits. Freezing mist drifted from the ice world delegations. The energy beings flickered and pulsed in their containment fields like living lightning. At the chamber's center stood a single platform, her destination. Elena forced one foot in front of the other, ignoring the way her muscles burned under the artificial gravity. She had trained for this moment for 3 years, building her strength and endurance specifically for this encounter. Every human diplomat who came before her had collapsed within the first 100 meters. That was why they always lost. As she walked, Elena's trained eyes cataloged everything. The Althari delegation with their 6 arms and crystalline exoskeletons dominated the central tier. Their leader, Speaker Corvin, stood nearly 4 meters tall, his multiple limbs moving in complex patterns that she recognized as threat displays. To his left, the insectoid hive mind representatives chittered in perfect unison, their collective consciousness processing her every movement. The reptilian Saurus Empire occupied the warmest section, their scales gleaming under heat lamps that would cook a human alive. The mechanical synthesis sat motionless as statues, their optical sensors tracking her progress with mathematical precision. Floating in zero-gravity fields, the gaseous ethereals swirled like miniature storms, their translated thoughts appearing as holographic text above their containment spheres. Each species represented thousands of worlds, billions of citizens, fleets that could glass entire solar systems. Together they controlled an empire that spanned half the galaxy, and they were all watching one human woman struggle to walk across their chamber floor. Elena reached the central platform and stepped onto it with deliberate precision. The platform rose smoothly, lifting her to speaking height where every representative could see her clearly. The gravity field here was even stronger, 4 times Earth normal. She felt blood vessels burst in her eyes from the pressure, felt her ribs creak as her lungs fought for air. But she stood straight. Speaker Corvin's massive form dominated the central podium. When he spoke, his voice resonated through translation devices that converted his crystalline chimes into sounds each species could understand. "The human delegation stands accused," he began, his words carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Your species has violated the peaceful coexistence accords. You have expanded beyond your designated zones without permission. You have constructed military vessels in direct defiance of our restrictions. You have refused to submit your technological advances for council approval." Elena said nothing. Around the chamber, she could feel the attention of nearly 1,000 alien minds focused on her like the heat of a sun. Some species communicated through pheromones that made the air taste of copper and ozone. Others projected emotional fields that pressed against her consciousness like cold fingers. The hive mind's collective thoughts buzzed at the edge of her hearing like angry wasps. "Humanity has been granted unusual tolerance," Corvin continued, "due to your recent emergence into galactic society. But tolerance has limits. Your aggressive expansion threatens the stability we have maintained for 1,000 years. The chamber erupted in sounds of agreement, or clicks, hisses, harmonic vibrations, electromagnetic pulses that made Elena's teeth ache. She waited for the noise to die down before speaking. "Honorable Speaker," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics, "I stand here not as a defendant but as a representative of Earth's military command. We have indeed been busy these past years." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Several species shifted in their environmental zones, their posture shifting to what Elena recognized as alert attention. "You admit to these violations?" Speaker Corvin's crystalline features somehow managed to convey surprise. "I admit to preparing my species for what was always inevitable," Elena replied. Her smile widened slightly, and she saw several alien representatives lean forward in their seats. "The question isn't whether humanity has been building ships and expanding our territory. The question is why you waited so long to notice." The chamber fell silent. Even the ever-present humming of life support systems seemed muted. Elena could feel the shift in the room's atmosphere as hundreds of the galaxy's most powerful beings suddenly realized this conversation wasn't going as they had planned. "Furthermore," Elena continued, "I'm curious about the Council's response to our activities. You speak of violations and restrictions, but I wonder, when exactly did humanity agree to any accords or limitations?" Speaker Corvin's 6 arms moved in what Elena had learned was confusion mixed with growing anger. "Your species was informed of galactic law upon first contact. Compliance is not optional." "Informed, yes," Elena agreed. "But Earth never signed any treaties. We never agreed to any restrictions. We never requested membership in your council or your empire." She paused, letting that sink in. "So I'm curious, Speaker Corvina, under what authority do you claim jurisdiction over humanity?" The silence stretched for long seconds. Elena could practically hear the collective realization dawning across the chamber. In their arrogance, in their assumption that every species would naturally want to join their galactic civilization, they had never actually secured humanity's legal submission. "You would stand against the entire galaxy?" Speaker Corvin's voice carried harmonics that Elena's translation device rendered as barely contained rage. "I would stand for humanity's right to chart its own course," Elena replied calmly. "But since you've called us here, since you've made accusations and threats, I have a proposal." She reached into her uniform jacket and withdrew a data crystal that gleamed like a captured star. Around the chamber, weapons systems powered up automatically, but Elena held the crystal casually, making no threatening moves. "This contains everything you need to know about humanity's recent activities," she said. "Our ship constructions, our territorial expansions, our technological developments. Consider it a gesture of goodwill." Speaker Corvin's multiple arms gestured and the crystal floated through the chamber's artificial gravity toward him. "And in return?" Elena's smile turned predatory. "In return, you get to decide what happens next. You can recognize humanity as a sovereign power and negotiate with us as equals. Or," she paused, her eyes scanning the assembled representatives, "you can try to enforce your will upon us. But I should warn you, the data in that crystal represents only what we've been willing to let you discover." The implications of her words rippled through the chamber like a shockwave. Species that had been dismissive of humanity moments before now regarded Elena with new attention. She had just suggested that everything they thought they knew about human capabilities was deliberately incomplete. "You threaten the Council?" Speaker Corvin's voice carried killing frost. "I inform the Council," Elena corrected. "What you do with that information is entirely up to you. But choose carefully, honored Speaker. The 1,000-year peace you've built is more fragile than you realize." As if summoned by her words, the chamber's communication systems activated. Urgent signals flooded in from across the galaxy, outbrew reports of unknown ships in restricted zones, of human vessels appearing in systems that should have been impossible to reach, of activities that suggested humanity's reach extended far beyond what anyone had imagined. Elena stood calmly in the crushing gravity, watching as the galaxy's most powerful beings realized they might have drastically underestimated the species they had summoned for judgment. The real question now wasn't whether humanity would submit to galactic authority. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity had planned all along. The crystalline chains around Elena's wrists felt heavier than the artificial gravity that had nearly crushed her 3 days ago. She stood on the auction platform in the heart of Nexus Prime's commercial district, her military uniform replaced with the simple gray robes of a condemned prisoner. Around her, the galaxy's most powerful civilizations had gathered not for diplomacy, but for commerce. The auction house stretched beyond the horizon in all directions, its transparent dome revealing the swirling dance of 3 different suns. Thousands of buyers filled the tiered seating, their environmental bubbles creating a patchwork of different atmospheres. The air hummed with excitement and greed in dozens of different languages. Lot number 779, announced the auction master, a blob-like creature whose translucent skin pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. 1 human female, designation General Elena Voss, age 34 standard years. Military experience spans 2 decades with an unprecedented record of tactical victories. Elena kept her expression neutral as holographic displays materialized around her, showing her military achievements in stark detail. Battle after battle, each one analyzed and dissected for the entertainment of potential buyers. Her victories against the Rim pirates, her defense of the Neptune mining station, the brilliant siege-breaking strategy that saved the Mars colonies. What the displays didn't show was that every one of those battles had been carefully orchestrated to create exactly this moment. In the VIP section, the major powers had taken their places. The hegemony of Vorth occupied the largest platform, their massive bulk requiring reinforced support structures. Their war chief, Brenter, studied Elena through multiple optical sensors, his scarred carapace telling the story of 1,000 conflicts. The Vorth had built their empire through relentless military expansion, conquering system after system with methodical precision. To their left sat the crystalline collective, their geometric forms refracting light and patterns that hurt human eyes to follow. Their representative, designated Prime Calculator 97 Alpha, processed information with mathematical perfection. The collective had never lost a battle, because they never fought unless their quantum computers calculated a 99.97% probability of victory. But it was the third group that commanded the most attention. The Void Hunters maintained a section of absolute darkness, their environmental shields blocking all light and heat. Within that darkness, shapes moved that triggered primal fears in every species present. The Void Hunters had earned their reputation by making entire civilizations simply disappear. The subject's tactical innovations revolutionized small unit warfare, the auction master continued, his pattern shifting to excited orange. Her development of the Terra Doctrine increased unit effectiveness by 340%, according to Galactic military analysis standards. Elena allowed herself a small smile. The Terra Doctrine was indeed revolutionary, but not in the way these fools understood. Every tactic, every strategy, every innovation she had developed carried hidden elements that only humans could fully comprehend. Elements that would prove devastating in the right circumstances. Opening bids start at 50 million galactic credits, the auction master announced. The Vorth delegate raised one massive claw, 60 million. 75 million, came the mathematical harmony of the crystalline collective's response. Elena watched the bidding escalate, her trained eyes cataloging every detail of the proceedings. The security arrangements, the communication protocols, the subtle power dynamics between species. Information that would prove invaluable. In the months to come, 100 million, declared a new voice that sent chills through the auction hall. The darkness surrounding the Void Hunter section seemed to deepen. Their war chief, Thranx the Soul Render, had finally entered the bidding. Elena felt the collective fear ripple through the assembled species. The Void Hunters rarely showed interest in individual acquisitions, preferring to harvest entire populations. 125 million, Brentor countered, his massive form rising from his platform. Elena's smile widened slightly. Perfect. The bidding war was proceeding exactly as Earth Command had predicted. Every species desperately wanted humanity's greatest military mind, never suspecting that acquiring her would be the beginning of their downfall. 200 million, came the cold whisper from the Void Hunter section. The auction hall fell silent. That amount could purchase entire star systems, build fleets that could challenge major powers. For a single human, it was unprecedented. The crystalline collective's calculations hummed audibly as they processed the escalation. 250 million. Elena used the pause to transmit her first coded message. The bioscanners monitoring her vital signs for the auction would record it as normal stress responses, but the pattern of her heartbeat carried crucial intelligence, information about guard rotations, security protocols, and the locations of communication arrays. Hidden among the crowds, human agents received the transmission and began their own preparations. The galaxy thought it was witnessing the sale of Earth's greatest military asset. In reality, they were watching the deployment of humanity's most dangerous weapon. 300 million, the Void Hunters whispered. 350, Brenter roared, his scarred carapace flaring with aggressive display patterns. Elena closed her eyes and transmitted another coded sequence, this one containing detailed intelligence about Vorth military capabilities. Their ship configurations, their weapon systems, their command structures, all observed during her 3 days of captivity, all carefully memorized and packaged for transmission. 400 million, the Crystalline Collective declared. The auction master's patterns shifted to deep purple with excitement. This sale would set records that would stand for centuries. Around the hall, smaller powers withdrew from the bidding, unable to compete at these levels. 450, came the soul-chilling whisper from the darkness. 500 million, Brentor declared. Elena opened her eyes and looked directly at the Void Hunter section. Even through the absolute darkness of their environmental shield, she knew Thranx was studying her. The Soul Render was legendary for his ability to break the strongest minds, to reduce civilizations to quivering submission. He had no idea what was coming. 600 million, the Void Hunters declared. The Crystalline Collective's calculations reached a crescendo, their geometric forms spinning frantically as they processed probability matrices. After long moments, they fell silent. The mathematical perfection they worshipped had calculated that no single military advisor was worth bankrupting their civilization. Brentor's massive claws gouged furrows in his platform's metal surface. The Vorth hegemony had built their empire on military superiority. But even they had limits. Going once, the auction master announced, his patterns cycling through the entire visible spectrum. Elena transmitted her final coded message of the auction. This one was simple, containing only 2 words in the old Earth military code that predated galactic contact, a code that no alien intelligence had ever encountered or could hope to decrypt. The message was, Phase 2. Going twice. Across the galaxy, human agents received the signal and began implementing plans that had been decades in the making. Ships that had been disguised as cargo haulers powered up hidden weapon systems. Sleeper agents embedded in alien governments activated their deep cover protocols. Research stations that appeared to be studying stellar phenomena revealed their true purpose, sold to the void. Hunters for 600 million galactic credits. The auction hall erupted in shocked murmurs as the implications sank in. The galaxy's most feared military force had just acquired Earth's greatest strategic mind. Elena Voss would now plan campaigns for beings who consumed the life essence of their enemies. As security forces moved to transfer her to Void Hunter custody, Elena allowed herself one last smile. The fools had no idea that they hadn't purchased a slave. They had bought their own destruction. Thranx emerged from the darkness for the first time, his form a writhing mass of shadow and hunger that made hardened warriors look away in terror. When he spoke, his voice carried the whispers of 1 billion consumed souls. The human comes with us now. We have much to discuss about the art of warfare. Elena stepped forward willingly, her chains clanking against the platform. I look forward to our collaboration, War Chief Thranx. I believe you'll find human tactical doctrine quite illuminating. As the Void Hunter's transport engaged its cloaking field and departed Nexus Prime, none of the assembled species realized they had just witnessed the most expensive mistake in galactic history. The auction was over. The real war was about to begin. The command chamber of the Void Hunter dreadnought Eternal Hunger pulsed with malevolent energy. Dark matter conduits snaked across the walls like veins, feeding power to weapons that could crack planets. Elena stood before the tactical display, her human form dwarfed by the writhing shadows that served as War Chief Thranx's command staff. 6 months had passed since the auction. 6 months of serving the galaxy's most feared military force, planning their campaigns of conquest and terror. To the Void Hunters, she had become their perfect weapon, a strategic mind that could outthink any opposition. They had no idea how right they were. The Tau sector resists our advance, hissed Commander Vex, his shadow form flickering with irritation. Their defensive formations adapt too quickly to conventional assault patterns. Elena studied the holographic battlefield, her expression carefully neutral. The Tau Sector rebellion had been brewing for months, with 17 different species refusing to pay tribute to the Void Hunter Empire. It should have been a simple pacification campaign. Instead, it had become a grinding stalemate that was beginning to embarrass Thranx's reputation. "Show me their fleet compositions," Elena requested. The tactical display shifted, revealing the Rebel Alliance's forces. Mismatched ships from a dozen different worlds, their tactics uncoordinated and their technology centuries behind Void Hunter standards. By every measure, they should have been crushed within days. Elena smiled inwardly. The rebels were performing exactly as she had instructed during her clandestine communications 6 weeks ago. "War Chief," she said, turning to address the writhing darkness where Thranx held court. "I believe I see the solution to your problem. The rebels are using their diversity as a strength, making their responses unpredictable, but that same diversity is also their weakness." Thranx's voice emerged from the shadows like a whisper from the grave. "Explain, human strategist." "Their command structure relies on consensus between species," Elena continued, her voice carrying just the right note of confidence. "If we can force them into a decisive engagement where quick decisions are crucial, their diversity becomes paralysis." She manipulated the tactical display, highlighting a small system at the sector's edge, New Geneva. "It's a minor human colony with minimal defenses. If we threaten it directly, the rebels will be forced to respond. They cannot allow a populated world to be consumed, but the moral imperative to save civilians will override their tactical caution." Commander Vex's form brightened with anticipation. "A trap. Force them to fight on our terms." "Precisely," Elena confirmed. "I propose a 3-pronged assault. Your heavy dreadnoughts form the primary strike force here." She indicated positions on the display, while fast attack craft circle behind to cut off retreat routes. Meanwhile, a secondary force threatens the colony directly, forcing the rebels to divide their attention. Thranx's approval resonated through the chamber like the screams of dying worlds. "Brilliant. The human mind truly is a masterpiece of tactical innovation. Prepare the fleet for immediate deployment." Elena bowed slightly, hiding her expression. The Void Hunters had no idea they were about to walk into the most elaborate trap in military history. 3 days later, the Void Hunter war fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the New Geneva system. 50 dreadnoughts led by the Eternal Hunger, supported by 300 attack craft and a dozen planet killers. It was overwhelming force by any standard. There was enough firepower to sterilize entire worlds. The human colony appeared defenseless. New Geneva was a small terraforming outpost with maybe 50,000 inhabitants. Its defensive fleet consisted of 3 obsolete cruisers and a handful of patrol boats. Against the Void Hunter armada, they might as well have been throwing rocks. Elena stood beside Thranx on the command deck, watching the tactical display with apparent calm. Inside, her heart raced with anticipation. Everything depended on the next few minutes. "The rebel fleet approaches," Commander Vex reported. 47 ships of mixed classification. "They're moving to intercept us before we reach the colony." "Perfect," Thranx whispered. "They sacrifice tactical advantage for moral necessity." "Exactly as the human predicted." Elena nodded, her expression grave. "War Chief, I recommend we implement the pincer formation immediately. Force them to fight on multiple fronts while they're still trying to organize their diverse command structure." "Agreed. All ships assume attack positions." The Void Hunter fleet spread out according to Elena's carefully crafted plan. The dreadnoughts formed the primary battle line, their massive bulk bristling with dark energy weapons. The attack craft swept wide to flank the approaching rebels. Everything was proceeding exactly as she had designed. What Thranx didn't know was that Elena had transmitted a complete copy of the battle plan to New Geneva's defenders 3 days ago, along with detailed schematics of every Void Hunter ship in the fleet. "Contact in 30 seconds, Vex announced. Elena closed her eyes and began transmitting her final coded message. To any observer, it would appear she was simply concentrating on the upcoming battle. In reality, she was sending the activation signal for humanity's greatest military secret. The signal reached New Geneva's communication array and bounced to hidden transmitters throughout the system. From there, it propagated across the galaxy at faster than light speeds, carrying two simple words to human agents on 1,000 different worlds. Phoenix Rising. Contact, Vex screamed. The battle began exactly as Elena had planned. The Void Hunter dreadnoughts opened fire with their dark energy cannons, beams of pure destruction that could vaporize entire city blocks. The rebel fleet responded with desperate courage, their mismatched ships charging into certain death. For the first few minutes, everything proceeded according to Void Hunter expectations. Their superior firepower shredded the rebel formation, destroying ship after ship with ruthless efficiency. Thranx's laughter echoed through the command chamber as another enemy cruiser exploded in brilliant fire. Then the impossible happened. The three obsolete human cruisers defending New Geneva suddenly launched a coordinated attack that defied every law of space combat. Their weapons, which should have been centuries behind Void Hunter technology, tore through dark matter shields like they were made of paper. Their movements, which should have been clumsy and predictable, flowed like water around the most devastating attacks. "What is this?" Thranx roared as one of his dreadnoughts exploded. Elena watched the tactical display with growing satisfaction. The human ships weren't using better technology. They were using completely different technology, weapons based on principles that bypassed every defensive system the galaxy had developed, tactics that relied on human intuition rather than mathematical perfection. "War Chief," she said calmly, "I believe you're witnessing the difference between serving humanity and enslaving it." Commander Vex's form flickered with confusion and rage. "The human betrays us." "No," Elena corrected, her voice carrying absolute certainty. "I'm doing exactly what you purchased. I'm demonstrating human tactical superiority." The battle turned into a massacre, but not the one Thranx had expected. The three human cruisers carved through his fleet like apex predators among prey. Their weapons struck with impossible precision, targeting critical systems that should have been protected. Their movements anticipated his commands before he gave them. "This is impossible," Thranx whispered, his shadow form writhing with disbelief. "3 ships cannot defeat 50. Elena turned to face the war chief directly, her smile no longer hidden. "You're right. 3 ships can't defeat 50. But 3 ships with perfect intelligence about your fleet capabilities, your tactical doctrines, and your command protocols?" She shrugged. "That's not a battle. That's an execution." The truth hit Thranx like a physical blow. For 6 months, Elena had been studying every aspect of Void Hunter military doctrine. She had memorized their ship designs, their weapon capabilities, their strategic thinking. She had observed their command structure, their communication protocols, their tactical assumptions, and she had transmitted all of it to human intelligence. "You planned this," he snarled, his voice carrying the fury of consumed civilizations. "I planned this the moment you bid on me," Elena confirmed. "Did you really think humanity's greatest military mind would serve the galaxy's most evil empire without an ulterior motive?" The eternal hunger shuddered as human weapons found their mark. Around them, the command chamber began to fill with acrid smoke as critical systems failed. The battle was over, the Void Hunter fleet was dying. Elena walked calmly to the chamber's central console and began entering commands. "Computer, override security protocols. Authorization, Elena Voss, acting captain." "Authorization accepted." The ship's artificial intelligence responded in perfect human English. Thranx recoiled in shock. "How do you know our command codes?" Elena's smile turned predatory. "Because this ship's AI has been learning human languages and human logic for the past 6 months. Amazing what you can accomplish when your captors think you're broken." She paused, watching as the last Void Hunter dreadnought exploded on the tactical display. "Oh, and Thranx, the human colony you just tried to destroy? They've been recording everything. Every war crime, every atrocity, every technique your species uses to break civilizations. What do you intend to do with such information?" The Galactic Council's emergency session convened in chaos. Representatives from 847 species filled the chamber, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony that the translation systems struggled to process. In the center of it all, Speaker Corvin's crystalline form flickered with patterns of barely controlled panic. The holographic displays surrounding the chamber told a story that defied belief. Fleet after fleet across the galaxy was reporting impossible defeats. The mighty hegemony of Vorth, conquerors of 1,000 worlds, had lost 3 entire battle groups to forces they couldn't identify. The crystalline collective's mathematically perfect formations had been shattered by tactics that violated every principle of logical warfare. Most shocking of all, the dreaded Void Hunters and the galaxy's apex predators had simply vanished. 57 dreadnoughts gone without a trace. Order. Speaker Corvin's voice resonated through the chamber's acoustics, cutting through the alien babble. We will have order in this chamber. The noise gradually subsided, but the fear remained. Elena watched from her position in the prisoner's dock, no longer in chains but still technically under council authority. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was simultaneously captive and conqueror. The evidence before us is undeniable, Corvin continued, his 6 arms gesturing to the tactical displays. Across 17 sectors, our most powerful military forces have suffered catastrophic defeats. The attackers appear to be human, but their capabilities far exceed any intelligence we possess about their species. A ripple of frightened murmurs ran through the assembled representatives. The aquatic depth lords bubbled anxiously in their pressure suits. The mechanical synthesis processed data at unprecedented speeds, their optical sensors cycling through spectrums of disbelief. Speaker Corvin, called out Ambassador Drex of the Saros Empire, his scales flushed with aggressive display colors. We demand an explanation from the human representative. How do her people possess such advanced warfare capabilities? Elena rose from her seat, her movements calm and deliberate. Every eye in the chamber focused on her as she approached the central platform. This time the gravity manipulators remained at normal settings. The council had learned that their intimidation tactics were useless against her. Honored representatives, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. You're asking the wrong question. The issue isn't how we possess these capabilities. The issue is why you never bothered to discover them. Explain yourself, Corvin demanded. Elena smiled, reaching into her uniform jacket to withdraw a data crystal identical to the one she had presented weeks ago. This contains the complete records of humanity's interactions with galactic civilization over the past 15 years. Every diplomatic mission, every cultural exchange, every peaceful encounter with your various species. She activated the crystal, and holographic displays materialized throughout the chamber. The images showed human diplomats and scientists visiting alien worlds, participating in cultural exchanges, attending conferences and symposiums. Normal, peaceful interactions that every representative recognized. What you're seeing, Elena continued, is the most comprehensive intelligence operation in galactic history. Every human who visited your worlds was gathering information. Every cultural exchange was a reconnaissance mission. Every diplomatic meeting was an opportunity to study your technologies, your tactics, and your weaknesses. The chamber erupted in outraged sounds from dozens of species. The hive mind's collective consciousness buzzed with betrayal. The energy beings pulsed with patterns of angry confusion. Impossible, clicked Prime Calculator 97 Alpha of the Crystalline Collective. Our security protocols would have detected such activities. Your security protocols were designed to detect espionage as you understand it, Elena replied. Hidden devices, encrypted communications, clandestine meetings. But what if the intelligence gathering was completely open? What if every question our diplomats asked was exactly what curious visitors would naturally ask? The holographic displays shifted, showing human representatives asking innocent questions. What materials were used in alien ship construction? How did different species approach tactical problems? What were the historical precedents for various military doctrines? You answered every question willingly, Elena continued. You were so eager to demonstrate your superiority to primitive humans that you revealed everything. Your technologies, your strategies, your capabilities, your limitations. Speaker Corvin's crystalline form darkened. You deceived us. We observed you, Elena corrected. We learned from you. We adapted your own techniques and found ways to counter them. Everything we did was exactly what any intelligent species would do when encountering more advanced civilizations. A new voice cut through the chamber's growing agitation. But where are your fleets, human? The speaker was War Marshal Brentor of the Vorth Hegemony, his scarred carapace bristling with aggressive display spines. Our sensors detect no massive armadas. Your home system shows no signs of the industrial capacity needed to build such forces. Elena's smile widened. That's because you're still thinking in terms of galactic military doctrine. Massive fleets, industrial shipyards, centralized command structures. But humanity didn't develop in a galactic context, Marshall. We developed in isolation, fighting ourselves for thousands of years. The displays changed again, showing Earth's history of warfare. Battles fought with everything from stone clubs to nuclear weapons. Conflicts that raged across continents and between continents. Strategies that evolved through constant adaptation and innovation. While you were building thousand-year empires, Elena continued, we were perfecting the art of war. Not galactic war with its rules and conventions, but total war. War where survival depends on innovation, adaptation, and the willingness to do whatever it takes to win. The humans were sold as military advisors, hissed Ambassador Yith of the Serpent Worlds. Many of our species purchased their expertise, Elena nodded. 43 human officers, scientists, and strategists were sold to various civilizations over the past 18 months. Each one became an expert on their purchaser's military capabilities. Each one transmitted detailed intelligence back to Earth. Each one prepared for this moment. The implications hit the chamber like a physical wave. Every major military power had unknowingly harbored human intelligence agents. The Crystalline Collective had revealed their mathematical warfare principles. The Soros Empire had demonstrated their biological weapons. The Synthesis had shared their technological integration protocols. This is an act of war, roared Brenter, his massive form rising from his platform. No, Marshal, Elena replied calmly. This is the consequence of treating sentient beings as property. You created the auction system. You established the precedent that intelligent species could be bought and sold. We simply used your own system against you. Speaker Corvin's arms moved in complex patterns of confusion and growing alarm. What do you want from us, human? Elena's expression grew serious. We want recognition of humanity as a sovereign species with the right to self-determination. We want an end to the auction system that treats sentient beings as commodities, and we want a new framework for galactic civilization that doesn't assume older species have the right to dictate terms to newer ones. And if we refuse? Corvin asked. Elena shrugged. Then you'll discover exactly how effective human military doctrine can be when applied on a galactic scale. The defeats you've witnessed so far? Those were demonstrations, warnings. The real human fleet hasn't even been deployed yet. As if summoned by her words, new alerts began flooding the chamber's communication systems. Reports of human ships appearing in systems across the galaxy. Not attacking, but simply present, waiting, watching. How many ships do you have? Whispered Ambassador Drex. Elena's smile returned, but this time it carried no warmth. Marshal Brentor asked about industrial capacity. You're right that Earth doesn't have massive shipyards, but Earth isn't the only human world, and we haven't been idle during our expansion beyond our designated zones. The displays showed star maps with highlighted systems, dozens of them, scattered across supposedly empty regions of space, each one marked with the simple designation, Human Colony. 73 worlds, Elena announced. Hidden bases in asteroid fields, research stations disguised as mining operations, agricultural colonies that happen to have defensive fleets. We've been preparing for this moment for 15 years. The chamber fell silent as the true scope of human preparation became clear. While the galactic powers had been focused on their internal politics and ancient grievances, humanity had been building a shadow empire. The 1,000-year peace was an admirable achievement, Elena continued, but it was built on the assumption that power would always remain concentrated among the established civilizations. You never considered what would happen when a truly different species entered the galaxy, one that didn't want to join your empire, but also wouldn't accept subjugation. Speaker Corvin's voice carried harmonics of defeat. What are your terms? Elena walked to the chamber's center, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Humanity will withdraw. The countdown reached 0 at exactly 00 hours. Galactic Standard Time. Elena stood on the bridge of the human dreadnought Defiant, watching as the Galactic Council's response flashed across the communication array. Their answer was exactly what she had expected. Conditional acceptance of some human demands, outright rejection of others, and enough bureaucratic language to delay any real change for decades. Signal from Earth Command, reported Lieutenant Commander Torres from the communication station. Admiral Kane is requesting final authorization. Elena nodded, her expression grim. The galaxy had been given every opportunity to choose peace. Instead, they had chosen the illusion of compromise that would change nothing. "Send the activation codes," she ordered. "All human fleets are weapons-free." Across the galaxy, sleeping giants awakened. In the Vega system, what appeared to be a dead moon suddenly split open, revealing a massive shipyard that had been hidden for 20 years. Hundreds of human warships emerged from concealment, their hulls gleaming with technologies that defied galactic understanding. In the Centauri sector, asteroid mining operations revealed their true purpose as mobile weapon platforms came online. Research stations studying stellar phenomena dropped their scientific disguises and powered up military-grade sensor arrays. From the edges of the galaxy to its crowded core, humanity's true fleet materialized like a nightmare made real. Not the few dozen ships the Council had detected, but thousands. An armada that had been building in secret, while the galaxy's attention was focused on internal politics. Phase 1 objectives achieved across all sectors, Torres reported. The hegemony of Vorth is reporting massive system failures in their primary fleet bases. The Crystalline Collective's computational networks are experiencing cascading shutdowns. Elena watched the tactical displays with satisfaction. The opening moves of humanity's campaign weren't designed to destroy enemy fleets. They were designed to cripple command and control systems. Every piece of technology that human advisors had studied over the past years now had hidden vulnerabilities that could be exploited. "What about the Void Hunters?" she asked. "Complete communications blackout from their territory," Torres replied. "Admiral Kane's infiltration protocols appear to have been successful." Elena smiled grimly. The Void Hunters had thought they were acquiring a human strategist. Instead, they had allowed a Trojan horse into the heart of their empire. Human computer viruses designed to integrate with alien systems had been spreading through their networks for months. "Signal from the synthesis," another officer reported. "They're requesting immediate negotiation." "Tell them to join the queue," Elena replied. The mechanical species had always prided themselves on logical efficiency. When faced with an enemy that could turn their own technology against them, their calculations had quickly determined that resistance was illogical. The bridge's main display shifted to show a real-time map of the galaxy. Red indicators marked worlds under human control or influence. Blue showed areas still loyal to the Galactic Council. As Elena watched, more blue indicators flickered to red as local governments chose pragmatism over principle. "Signal from Nexus Prime," Torres announced. "Speaker Corvin is requesting immediate communication with General Voss. Put him through." Speaker Corvin's crystalline form materialized in the bridge's holographic projector. His 6 arms moving in patterns that Elena had learned indicated extreme agitation. "General Voss," he began, his translated voice carrying harmonics of desperation. "We demand you cease these attacks immediately. Your forces are violating every principle of civilized warfare." Elena's laugh was cold. "Civilized warfare? You mean the kind where you auction sentient beings to the highest bidder? Where you impose your will on younger species through threats and intimidation? Where you maintain peace by ensuring that no one can challenge your authority? The Council is prepared to negotiate our—" "The time for negotiation ended 72 hours ago," Elena interrupted. "You made your choice. Now you live with the consequences." "Your tactics are barbaric," Corvin protested. "Turning our own technologies against us, exploiting our trust." "Our tactics are effective," Elena corrected. "Something you'll understand better when you study humanity's military history. We've been fighting wars since before your species achieved sentience. We've perfected strategies that don't depend on technological superiority or numerical advantage." She gestured to the tactical display, where human forces were systematically dismantling the galaxy's military infrastructure. "You built your 1,000-year peace on the assumption that everyone would play by your rules. But we're not playing by your rules. We're playing by ours. What do you want?" Corvin's patterns shifted to what Elena recognized as surrender postures. "Complete dissolution of the Galactic Council's authority structure," Elena replied without hesitation. "An end to all species-based hierarchies. Recognition of every world's right to self-determination, and a new framework for interstellar relations based on mutual respect rather than imposed order." "Impossible. The chaos will be temporary," Elena interrupted. "Species will form new alliances based on common interests rather than ancient privileges. Some worlds will choose isolation, others will seek partnership. The strong will still lead, but they'll have to earn that leadership through service rather than taking it through force." Corvin's form flickered with disbelief. You would tear down 1,000 years of stability for an ideal? Elena's expression hardened. We would tear down 1,000 years of stagnation for the chance to build something better. Your peace was built on the backs of species that never had a choice in their own governance. That's not peace, that's just successful tyranny. And if civilizations choose war over cooperation, then they'll face the consequences of their choices, Elena replied. But at least they'll be their own choices, not decisions imposed by species that happen to reach the stars first. The communication link dissolved as Corvin terminated the connection. Elena wasn't surprised. The speaker was probably rushing to convene an emergency session to discuss surrender terms. Admiral Kane is signaling from Earth, Torres reported. Phase 2 is ready for implementation, Elena nodded. Phase 1 had been about demonstrating human capabilities and dismantling galactic authority. Phase 2 would be about rebuilding, RARS helping species transition to self-governance while ensuring that the old power structures couldn't simply reconstitute themselves. Tell the Admiral to proceed. And send word to all human commanders, we're not conquerors. We're liberators. Anyone who wants to join the new order is welcome. Anyone who wants to maintain the old order. She paused, watching as another council stronghold switched sides. Well, they're welcome to try. The tactical display showed the true scope of humanity's strategy. While galactic attention had been focused on military confrontations, human agents had been building networks of communication and cooperation among younger species. The Galactic Council's authority hadn't just been challenged, it had been bypassed entirely. Signal from the Free Worlds Coalition, an officer announced. 47 systems have formally declared independence from Council authority and are requesting human assistance in organizing self-governance. Elena smiled. That was the real victory. Not the military defeats they had inflicted, but the political awakening they had triggered. Species that had accepted council dominance for centuries were suddenly questioning why they needed permission to govern themselves. Grant their requests, she ordered. Send diplomatic teams to help them establish independent governments. And make sure they understand. We're not replacing the council's authority with our own. We're helping them learn to rule themselves. On the main display, the galaxy continued its transformation. Red indicators spread not through conquest but through choice. As species after species chose freedom over security, self-determination over imposed order, the 1,000-year peace was ending. But something better was taking its place. A galaxy where strength came from diversity rather than conformity, where younger species could contribute their unique perspectives rather than simply following ancient precedents. Elena thought about the auction where this had all begun, where the galaxy's powers had bid on what they thought was a single human strategist. They had been so focused on acquiring one mind that they never considered what humanity as a whole was capable of achieving. Now they knew. The galaxy had auctioned one human general, thinking they were buying a weapon. Instead, they had awakened an entire species that refused to accept that might made right, that age granted authority, or that peace required subjugation. The old order was dying. In its place, something unprecedented was being born. A galactic community based on cooperation rather than dominance, diversity rather than uniformity, freedom rather than security. Elena Voss stood on the bridge of her command ship, watching as the future took shape around her. The general who had been sold like property had become the architect of galactic liberation. The 1,000-year peace was over. The 1,000-year freedom was just beginning. Signal from all sectors, Torres reported, his voice filled with awe. Human fleets are standing down. Local governments are taking control. The transition is proceeding smoothly. Elena nodded, but her attention was already to